The trail wound up a steep ascent, and the wind carried the whisper of the dunes, as if the sand itself were recording Thalrin's words, words that hung in the air like echoes from a distant past. Cale remained open-mouthed, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief, unable to form a coherent thought or utter a single word. Beside him, Caius wore an unusually serious expression, his round face betraying a rare look of astonishment. He had never imagined his father could be a hero carved out of legend. Leora, however, was the breeze that danced between the tension, her mind bubbling with the intriguing revelations she had just absorbed. She possessed that singular gift, a lightness almost magical, like someone who knew how to cradle pain and tuck it away into silent little boxes, to be opened only when necessary. For a moment, she tried to hold back, hoping someone else would break the silence first, but her inquisitive nature was irrepressible. With a slight tremble in her voice and an inquisitive tone, she finally dared to ask,
Master Thalrin, do you believe there are still new heralds?
Thalrin paused for a brief moment. Turning his gaze over his shoulder, his eyes sparked with a mixture of gentleness and wisdom.
I thought we were already friends, Leora. No need to call me master, just Thalrin.
The girl blushed, a soft flush tinting her cheeks, as he continued with a subtle smile.
But to answer your question,
he went on, his voice as steady as the rocks around them.
Of course. I'm absolutely certain there are still heralds out there. I know of at least 3 nearby.
Leora and Cale froze, their eyes wide with curiosity fixed on him. She pressed on, her voice gaining a thread of excitement.
Are you saying what we did on the Illith Hills was some kind of sign?
Thalrin let out a deep laugh, coming to a full stop and turning to face them, the sun glinting off his billowing cloak.
Girl, if what you did on that hill and what happened last night isn't a sign, then I'm no herald.
Leora's mind soared like a newly freed bird, circling a sky she didn't yet understand. A herald of the Lume? She was just a simple girl, tangled by chance in a tapestry of events she could barely grasp. How could it be true? Thalrin had to be mistaken, projecting expectations that weren't hers. Raising her voice with a mix of doubt and resolve, she called after the old man, who was already walking again.
But Thalrin, I don't know anything about music. I can't even really read or write. Will you abandon me if you find out I'm not who you need?
Her thoughts spun in a whirlwind, invading the space where joy and lightness usually reigned, and a seed of fear began to sprout in her heart. It was Caius who answered, his warm voice slicing through the air.
What kind of nonsense is that, Leora? If anyone here could be a herald, it's you. I can teach you to read and make music myself. No one's leaving you behind.
Cale followed, his tone firm but reassuring.
If you're not one, then neither am I. And if one of us has to leave, we both go. So calm down.
The children didn't notice, but Thalrin's sharpened instincts, until then dulled by the fog of memories, returned to focus like a rekindled flame. He recognized what was happening. His melancholy had made him drop his guard, a grave mistake he could not afford in such a critical moment. He knew how the voices whispered behind the loom, and how receptive children could be to them. Thinking quickly, without breaking stride, he pulled out his guitar and plucked a faint melody, high, continuous notes like threads of light, weaving an invisible shield around the group. Leora calmed, the questions fading from her lips, and walked on in silence, flanked closely by Caius, who followed just behind, his gaze not on the path stones, but on her tense shoulders, as if he could protect her simply by being there. Thalrin sighed in relief, deciding to keep that melody going whenever possible for the rest of the journey. The trail finally reached its peak, the sandy ground giving way to cliffs of red clay, where rocks rose like silent sentinels, sculpted by time. It was Cale who broke the silence now, his voice heavy with doubt.
If we're heralds, why didn't my mother ever tell me? And how are we supposed to be trained if Silmith is like that?
Thalrin cast a sideways glance, barely turning his face, his expression hardened by wisdom.
You're not heralds yet, but you will be. I trust your mother began your training in the hidden arts, even if she never named them. And even if you haven't mastered them yet, the seed is within you. But listen carefully. Never even think of approaching Silmith, not until your training is complete. I know you have many questions now, but I promise everything will be answered once we reach Zarenth. We're far too exposed here, and I need to make sure you arrive safely. I've already explained how important that is.
Kale, however, wasn't satisfied and pressed on.
If my mother was the last herald of Era, shouldn't there already be another one out there somewhere? For all we know, it could even be Leora.
Caius couldn't hold back a loud,
Yes.
his mouth reacting before his mind, drawing the first smile from Leora in several minutes. But Auren crushed the theory with a firm tone.
As charming as our friend undoubtedly is, I'm quite certain it's not her. Sithra will teach you how to recognize those signs soon. But yes, the new Herald of Era should be around your age by now, assuming she's still out there.
His final words carried a weight the children didn't quite grasp, but another detail caught Kale's attention. He would be trained by Sithra, his mother's mentor? Anticipating the next question, and tired of trying to enforce silence along this dangerous stretch of the road, Auren stepped ahead and said,
Yes, Kale, you will be trained directly by Sithra. And as for you, Leora, your journey begins with me. That's why we must reach Zarenth as soon as possible. I don't know how much time we have, but I'm certain it's not much, and you're both still too young. It's far too soon.
Despite Auren's serious and somber tone, Leora found both comfort and excitement in his words. She would be trained as a herald directly by a master of the order, and still remain by the side of her friends, both old and new. The thought wrapped around her like a warm breeze, restoring the lightness so characteristic of her personality. It washed away recent troubles and brought the brighter side of things into focus. The only shadow still weighing on her heart was the uncertainty about her sister's fate. Kale, on the other hand, felt deeply unsettled. Yes, his mother had taught him, but he hadn't truly learned, and he had no intention of becoming a herald. He dreamed of being a warrior like his father had been, a path that echoed in his blood more powerfully than any melody. But the staff in his hand seemed to have other plans, glowing softly, as if it could hear his thoughts.